Well, it's time now for Truth or Fake, our daily fact-checking segment. I'm joined on set now by Vedika Bahl. Vedika, it's good to see you. You and the France 24 Observers team have been debunking a whirlwind of misinformation surrounding the war in Ukraine for one whole year now. Can you give us a roundup of what you found?
Yes, Fraser. Statistically, the France 24 Observers team has debunked 115 fake news stories surrounding the war in Ukraine over the past year. And these are all claims only using visual elements. It doesn't include any speeches given by any political figures, only visual elements shared online like photo and video. And overall, this has really allowed us to get a better idea of how both sides, Russia and Ukraine, have used narratives in order to push forward their rhetoric.
And Vedika, what are the main narratives of fake news that have been used to misinform people?
Yes, we saw 10 major narratives over 1 year of misinformation. We can see the frequency of pro-Russian stories that we looked at here at the Observers in blue and pro-Ukrainian stories there in black. Now, out of the pro-Russian narratives themselves, by far the most frequent and recurring was that of Nazism and Nazi ideology present in Ukraine. And of course, Vladimir Putin himself dubbed the Russia's invasion as a denazification mission just 1 year ago. And through a lot of the stories that we looked at here of the Observers and that we debunked, this narrative was really used mainly as a justification for the war. Now, one very strong example of this is this one that we covered earlier during the time of the FIFA World Cup in Doha. This was a viral video created exactly in the style of an Al Jazeera social media content, and it was claiming that Ukrainian fans in Doha were sharing pro-Nazi slogans and imagery via graffiti in Doha. However, Al Jazeera never published this, and this was completely fabricated, although it was a very believable similar style of editing. Now, another example is this one. This is a claim of a Ukrainian soldier wearing an alleged Nazi bracelet with a swastika on it. Now, again, this was in fact a real image from the front line, but because it was shared in such poor compressed quality and it was very much in a very low resolution image, that's exactly what distorted its true content. And through a little bit of a deep dive, we also found that it wasn't actually a swastika at all. It was, in fact, a Celtic knot bracelet. Now, another recurring theme that pro-Russian accounts have used is that of Ukraine staging the war, and this was aimed at Ukraine, but also its Western allies. This video is just one example. However, it is actually behind-the-scenes footage of filming of a Ukrainian movie that's actually being made about this war, but again, shared out of context in order to accuse Ukraine of putting on this act. Another main narrative that we saw was that glorifying the Russian troops. Now, this was used quite a lot by pro-Russian accounts online. This is a strong example, this video. Now, this was actually shared by Russia's defense ministry themselves to kind of show off their military expertise via this fantastic hypersonic missile that they claimed destroyed swathes of Ukrainian territory. However, this video was in fact made with special effects. But again, its overall use was to share the narrative that Russia is winning.
So that's the pro-Russian misinformation narratives, but what did you find from the Ukrainian side?
Yes, well, the pro-Ukrainian accounts, on the other hand, very much tended to glorify the resistance efforts by Ukraine or the strength of its own Ukrainian people and civilians. For example, these photos here. Let me just get that up there. These photos here, this is just one example and this is another. Now, these were both shared by pro-Ukrainian accounts, this one claiming that this is a brave 8-year-old little girl confronting a Russian soldier on the front line, and that this one is a Ukrainian farmer having overthrown Russian troops in order to hijack this military fighter jet. Now, a reverse image search told us that this actually shows a Palestinian child activist confronting an Israeli soldier, and it was actually shot in the West Bank in 2012. And this, in fact, is a photograph from a Croatian military parade in Zagreb in 2011. Now, interestingly enough, pro-Ukraine misinformation also includes accusations of staging, but it's not about staging the war. It's actually directed at Vladimir Putin himself to push a narrative of paranoia behind the Russian president. So we actually saw 3 separate claims of this kind at the Observers over the last year, accusing Putin of using paid actors, either as civilians during his official visits here, with a lot of the faces being the same, or, to example, to overcrowd and repopulate a little bit more his official speeches to represent the crowds, but also his own army there. But overall, the techniques that we've seen used by both Russian and pro-Ukrainian accounts over the last year, these are the main techniques. Images being taken out of context from other events entirely, for example, that film clip from the Ukrainian film, but also the little girl against the Israeli soldier. We've also got images that have been edited or fabricated or manipulated entirely. For example, that Al Jazeera video, which was created by someone very adept on editing software, or for example, real images with fake captions, like we looked at with the swastika bracelet that was in fact a Celtic knot. So overall, these are just some of the Observer's content that we've dealt with regarding misinformation in Ukraine over the last year. And if our viewers want to find out more, they can find a more detailed breakdown on the Observer's, France 24 Observer's website in both French and in English.
Vedika Bahl, thank you so much for that breakdown. I'm sure a lot more work for you coming up in the following months. Thank you so much for that.